Many moons ago, in the lively market of Gbalefa, there lived a young woman named Tari, known for her striking beauty, sharp mind, and a heart that refused to give up, though life had dealt her a hard hand. Each day, she balanced a tray of ripe mangoes on her head, weaving through the bustling market, sweat rolling down her brow as she called out to buyers with a weary yet hopeful voice. This was her hustle, her way of keeping food in the mouths of her aging mother and younger brother. "Tari, come rest a little, my child," called out Mama O'Neill, the old woman roasting plantains by the roadside, but Tari only smiled and replied, "Mama, if I rest, will hunger rest too? I must finish selling or hunger will finish us instead." As she turned to continue, she bumped into someone and her tray crashed, mangoes scattering across the dusty path. "I'm so sorry, sir," she muttered, kneeling to gather them, but a calm, deep voice replied, No, it's not your fault. Let me help." And when she looked up, she saw a tall, dark-skinned man in fine clothes, handsome and clearly from wealth. "Are you hurt? What's your name?" he asked gently, and she shyly responded, "I'm Tari. I'm all right." "Tari," he echoed with a smile, "a name as beautiful as the woman who bears it. I'm Kuma. I just came to buy a few things. Do you sell here every day?" When she nodded, he replied, "Good, I'll return tomorrow and buy every mango you have," then winked and stepped into his gleaming car, leaving Tari stunned, her heart fluttering with a mix of wonder and confusion. True to his word, Kuma returned daily, purchasing all her mangoes without bargaining, sitting with her, sharing stories and laughter. She learned he was the son of a powerful merchant who owned ships and oil, yet he was nothing like the arrogant men she had heard of. He listened when she spoke, encouraged her dreams, and even laughed at her dry jokes. Over time, their bond blossomed into something neither expected: love. One golden evening, as they strolled near the river, Kuma asked, "If you could do anything with no money to worry about, what would it be?" Tari paused, eyes clouding with longing, and said, "I'd go to school, I'd become someone that matters. But such dreams need money, and I'm just a mango seller." Kuma stepped closer and whispered, "What if I told you I could make that dream come true? Let me send you to school, Tari. I can easily afford to send 50. She gasped, shaking her head. "We barely know each other. It hasn't been long. How can I accept this?" But Kuma only smiled and said, "I've seen enough to know you're worth it. You're kind, brave, and you fight for your family. Let me help, just as you help your mother." Her eyes welled up with tears, and when she asked if he was certain, he held her tightly and said, "I've never been more sure." From that moment, Tari's world transformed. Kuma enrolled her in a respected university, bought her books, paid her fees, and supported her emotionally at every step. Months later, he asked if she would be his partner, and with joy rushing through her veins, she agreed without hesitation. Their love blossomed like the first rain after dry season, pure and full. Kuma treated her like royalty, showered her with gifts, whisked her away on travels, and made her feel like the only woman in the world. Tari, who had only known struggle, now lived in a world she once dared not dream of. He even moved her mother and brother into a lovely home, opened a small provisions shop for her mother, and enrolled her brother in a fine school. For the first time, Tari believed in miracles, and she knew this one wore the name Kuma. Their lives had taken a beautiful turn, a transformation so complete it felt like a dream spun from moonlight, and for the first time in many seasons, Tari knew happiness, like the sun knew dawn. Years passed in contentment, and the day she graduated from the great school Kuma had sent her to, he took her to a quiet beach house far from the noise of the town. The sea breeze carried laughter and warmth as he held her hands and said, "Tari, no woman has ever changed me the way you have. You made me better. I want to grow old beside you. Will you be my wife?" With tears spilling from her eyes, she exclaimed, "Yes, Kuma. 1,000 times yes, you've given me everything. I want to be yours forever." And so their love deepened like roots in fertile ground, steady and strong. They began preparing for their wedding, dreaming of a future that shimmered like sunrise. But life, like the wind, shifts without warning. One night, as they sat together laughing under the stars, Tari mentioned a sudden craving for grilled suya. Eager to please, Kuma rushed out to fetch it, promising to return quickly. But fate had another plan. On his way back, his car was struck, and he was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Tari's world turned cold. She ran barefoot to the hospital, prayers tumbling from her lips, begging the spirits to spare him. Hours passed until finally the doctor came, solemn-faced. "He is alive," he said, "but the damage to his spine is grave. He may never walk again." Tari's heart broke, but she clung to hope. He was still breathing. When Kuma awoke, days later she wept at his side, whispering, "Thank you, Creator, you stayed with me." But Kuma, with tears rolling down his cheeks, turned away and whispered, "I wish I hadn't made it. I don't want to live like this, crippled, helpless. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want you to see me as less." But Tari leaned close, kissed his forehead and said with unshakable love, "You are still the man I love, whether you stand tall or sit in a chair. I am here, and I'm not going anywhere." After weeks in the hospital, Kuma was discharged and brought home. Tari cared for him with tenderness, feeding, bathing, comforting him. But then his mother came, a regal woman of wealth and pride. She had never liked Tari. Now her disdain deepened. She blamed Tari for the accident. "If you hadn't sent him for suya," she sneered, "my son would still be whole." After she left, something shifted in Kuma. He grew bitter, snapping at Tari for every small thing. Her food was no longer good enough. Her presence, once his comfort, now irritated him. He began to echo his mother's words, blaming her, accusing her of destroying his life. It pierced Tari's heart, but she stood firm. "You're still everything to me, Kuma," she'd say gently. "Don't let this pain destroy who you are. I love you, for better or worse, even before the vows are spoken." But her words fell on wounded ears. Kuma begged her to leave, to live a better life without him. Still, Tari refused. She stayed, she loved, she endured. Yet every day, his anger grew. The smallest things, her stepping out briefly, smiling at a passerby, would spark cruel accusations. Still, she clung to her love, hoping the man she once knew would return, though the storm around her heart only darkened. As days turned to weeks, Kuma's pain twisted deeper into darkness, and his once warm heart grew cold with resentment. He accused Tari of smiling too much when guests came around, claiming she was happier in his absence. And one bitter night, he stared at her with sunken eyes and said, "Why did you agree to marry me? Was it because I was rich? Because I saved you from the dust of the market? Was it all pity?" Tari's voice cracked as she replied, "Kuma, please stop this. You know why I stayed. It's because I love you." But her words slid off him like rain on rock. "Lies," he shouted. "You pity me. I used to be strong, respected. Now I sit in this chair all day like a burden, a shadow, a thing." Tari's heart, worn thin from bearing his pain, began to fray. She had tried everything, words, kindness, patience, but his anger only grew sharper. And though she longed to leave, she was shackled not just by emotion but by guilt. He had once lifted her and her family from poverty, sent her to school, given her mother a home and enrolled her brother. How could she walk away now when he was at his lowest? Besides, his mother made sure to remind her daily that leaving would be betrayal. "Do not forget what my son has done for you," she'd hiss over the phone. Even Kuma's friend, Tari, scolded her. "Tari, don't even think of running. If not for Kuma, where would you be? You owe him. Stay. Care for him. Wasn't it your plan to marry him anyway?" The pressure crushed her. People praised her devotion to his face and whispered accusations of ingratitude behind her back. So Tari stayed, not for love anymore, but from duty and fear of judgment. She endured his insults, his outbursts, his long silences, and the echo of a love that had long since died. The man she once loved no longer lived in this body. Something darker had taken root in Kuma, and though her spirit begged her to leave, her courage failed her. Eventually, months passed and a wedding was held. Not the joyful celebration she had dreamed of, but a quiet union bound in pity. From the very first day of marriage, Kuma's bitterness bloomed into cruelty. He watched her every move, interrogated her for every errand. "Are you meeting another man?" he'd ask. And when she laughed to lighten the mood, he snarled, "You're mocking me." No gesture was enough. No food was good. His cruelty deepened until he began to control every piece of her life. He banned her from visiting her family, claiming they would turn her against him. He forced her to quit her job, saying, "You don't need money. What are you saving for to escape?" He threw her meals on the floor, shouting, "Is this what I get now? When I had legs, didn't I take you to fine restaurants?" At night, peace fled their home. He would wake her, ordering her to fetch water, move pillows, rub his legs. Not from need, but to remind her she was trapped. "You owe me, Tari," he'd whisper. "You'd still be rotting in that market if not for me." And with those words, the final threads of the woman she once was began to unravel. She tried to tell her mother, but even there she found no shelter. "You can't leave him," her mother said, eyes full of fear. "He saved us, Tari. He gave us dignity. What will people say? They'll call you a gold digger. They'll laugh at us." And so, surrounded by voices urging silence, Tari wept, alone. Each morning she woke beside a man she no longer knew, and each night she cursed the moment she'd said, "I do." The man who once gave her hope now held her prisoner, and what once was love had turned to chains. The man Tari once loved was no longer there. His body remained, but the soul she fell for had vanished like mist in the sun. One weary afternoon, overwhelmed by sorrow, Tari stepped outside to clear her mind. Her feet moved without thought until she found herself walking aimlessly down the dusty roadside. That's when she saw a young man seated in a parked car, Dio. He noticed her talking to herself, her eyes swollen with sadness. With gentle concern, he approached and asked, "Are you all right?" Before she could answer, tears spilled freely down her face, tears she had held in for far too long. A stranger's kindness opened the floodgates. Dio helped her into the car, and they sat for hours. She spoke of everything, the cruelty, the prison she lived in, the love that had soured. He listened with patience and without judgment, and for the first time in ages, Tari felt seen. She began visiting Dio in secret, not out of betrayal, but to feel human again. He offered no promises, only peace, a refuge from her storm. One day, Dio urged her, "You don't need to decide now. Come stay with me for a while. Breathe. Think. Your heart deserves clarity." Tari, weary and lost, agreed. She packed a few things and left the house of the man she once adored, leaving behind the ghost of Obasi. But soon, rumors spread like wildfire. People whispered that she had found another man. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Obasi's mother cursed. His friend Tari accused her of betrayal, and even her own friends called to mock her. "You were fine when he had money," they said. "Now he's broken and you run?" Even her mother, once her shield, called with trembling voice, "Tari, please go back. What will people say? They'll call us gold diggers." The weight of shame and guilt pressed on her chest. Dio remained her sanctuary, never demanding, always comforting. Yet despite his kindness, her spirit crumbled under the pressure. One morning, she folded her clothes, thanked Dio softly, and returned to the house she once escaped. Dio pleaded with her to choose herself, but her mind was set. That decision, however, led her deeper into misery. Obasi was worse than before. He struck her with his cane, cursed her as just a fruit seller, screamed that he owned her. "I made you. Without me, you'd be rotting in that market," he would shout. One day, after an especially cruel tirade, she snapped. She slipped something into his drink, and when he fell into a heavy sleep, she placed a pillow over his face and ended it. The silence afterward was deafening. Standing over his body, the weight of what she had done crashed down on her. She sobbed, uncontrollably. "What have I done? How did we end up here?" The man who once saved her had become the man who broke her, and now she had broken him too. Unable to carry the guilt, Tari walked to the nearest police station and confessed. She was arrested, charged, and locked away, trapped again, but in a different kind of prison. Her friend Dio visited when he could, his eyes heavy with grief. "If only you'd stayed," he whispered once. Her mother visited too, always in tears. "I should have let you go," she said, but regret came too late. And so Tari spent her days in sorrow, weeping for the life that could have been, and for the love that became her undoing.